Deathstrike and Loyal Companion. Although both offer different playstyles, these two engravings are able to be combined into something even greater. But is that all there really is to it though? Is it truly the #1 build? Metas can oftentimes be confusing or deceiving, which leads to builds being lambasted by the player base rather quickly. And so today we'll be taking a look at the popular endgame build and better understanding what it does and how it works. So to start, we must first understand how it all began. Sharpshooter's roots. Time for a trip down memory lane, boys. In Lost Ark's endgame, there are two major breakthrough points for engravings, being 1415 and 1540. Sharpshooters first started out with the Domination set using Awakening as a 5th engraving. Although this build is now known to be generally weaker than the one I'm about to mention, there is still a player by the name of Sinsa who has cleared all endgame content while using this set. You know, just because the iPhone 10 came out, it doesn't mean that iPhone 9 is now useless. Smilegate later released new armor sets and engravings which would pave the way for the new and very arguably best in slot build for Sharpshooter to this very day. It is none other than the Nightmare set for Deathstrike and Hallucination set for Loyal Companion. Nightmare set was great as it solved the high cooldown and mana drain Deathstrike was suffering from, and Hallucination allowed Loyal Companion players to go even higher agility due to its critical rate increase. While all of this sounds great, it was but an ice cream without a cherry on top. The new engravings that were released, most notably Hitmaster and Adrenaline, worked amazingly for both builds and provided a solid 5th choice for Sharpshooter. So where does Loyal Companion come in? What happened in a year that made it rise to the very top? What was so special that it made almost every Sharpshooter swap to it despite the cost? Buffs. Yep, that's it, just buffs. On September 29 and October 30th, Loyal Companion received some rather significant changes that would soon catch the attention of players and debut as the new best Sharpshooter build. An increase in Hawk auto attack by 300%, 14% total damage, and the best part, in my opinion, in combat, gauge recovery 30% boost. Now, time for the main question. Looking at the engraving mathematically on paper, 14% damage gain is still lesser than any of the 5 engravings that Hawkeye uses. So why did players intentionally swap to something that could lower their overall DPS? Here's the truth behind the swap. The reason for going both death rate and second ally is due to the ease of use and not for extra damage. And it's also death rate that uses second ally, not the other way around. There is a very well written post of this on Invent. I will leave a link to it in the description below if you would like to check it out. Now, damage aside, let's take a look at the other qualities Loyal Companion has to offer. The 300% attack damage gain is a decent filler, the 8 death rates downtime, along with the higher passive in-combat gauge gain, increase of 30%, allowing for more consistency when it comes to gauge generation. This engraving also has 0 penalties, which is a huge plus when it comes to picking 5th engravings. Now that we understand how it works, let's go over the possible replacements along with the pros and cons of doing so. The top 2 engravings that have been up on the replacement list are none other than Cursed Doll and Hitmaster. Cursed Doll offers 16% attack power and affects all skills, including the Awakening. Hitmaster gives a 16% damage gain but only affects non-directional skills, and it also specifies that Awakening is not included in this, which can also be considered a downside since you lose damage on the Awakening skill. Loyal Companion offers 14% damage and synergy options to 8 death rate, such as gauge gain, longer Hawk duration, decent filler during downtime, and no drawbacks. 0. When it comes to Loyal Companion, most people decide either between going for more damage or a build with lesser defensive drawbacks. Some even simply add Loyal Companion 1 into their setup due to its insane value compared to other level 1 engravings. The only other worthy contender of this spot is Adrenaline with the 5% crit rate and attack power bonus increase. Loyal Companion is also a very unique engraving, and why is that? With its addition, it diversifies Sharpshooter's linear Deathstrike build. Deathstrike was no longer a pick these 5 engravings and go full spec and crit meta. Many other builds became possible after the addition of Loyal Companion, such as full crit, spec agility, crit split. Some players used the Gale rune and swapped to Shadow Dance to balance out the gauge loss from Wealth rune removal, and in turn get higher agility values to speed up their rotations, making it both a more reliable way of doing damage within the 8-second combo and faster cooldowns as well. Personally, I have tested all these builds, and after very careful consideration, I went with Bong King's build, which is a 55% crit and a higher spec value. What this build specializes in is that Adrenaline 1 is taken as a 6 engraving slot to make up for the 5% crit loss, but in return, having higher spec now means that I will be able to regenerate my gauge consistently with just one skill, that is Blade Storm. It eliminates the need for me to use my counter skill for gauge and allows the player to save it for situations that actually matter. Now, with all that said, why did I never recommend Loyal Companion if it had this many benefits? The reason is actually simple. Double class engraving setups, especially in early game, can often be too expensive or tedious to set up, specifically 1325 to 1370, and there's also absolutely no reason to go that hard on engravings in tier 1 and 2. Due to how simple content is and how fast you will be out of there, the last thing you want is to regret spending so much money on accessories that only last you a week or two. Picture yourself eating steak, right? Would you rather pay 20 gold for a good steak or pay 200 gold for a steak covered in gold flakes? Both fulfill the same purpose, just one is more fancier than the other. The last thing I would like to mention regarding this build is that the difficulty bumps up a little bit when it comes to doing damage with this build. So if you're having trouble doing damage consistently with Death Strike alone, it's going to feel even more overwhelming when you try to swap to this build. Why is that? Death Strike gameplay focuses on landing the Hawk for a 8-second damage buff and following up with your 4 core damage skills. The timing given to execute the combo is already small enough. Now try putting Loyal Companion on top of all that. If you were to ever so slightly miss the Z or X key or even mistime the rotation, you end up either completely losing the 14% damage gain or uneven buff timers on the boss. It is a build that requires much practice and investment, so I would really only recommend it at endgame where your accessories and books are solidified and you have good knowledge on boss fights in general. Loyal Companion Death Strike is a very good setup, but it definitely comes with its own set of conditions as well. If you guys would like to see gameplay of it in endgame, you can check out this video on the side of the screen here. And thanks again for watching. See ya.